Hello, welcome to this webinar on the science and practice of youth thriving. This presentation draws from emerging research as shown through the thriving model of positive youth development developed by Dr. Mary Arnold. Dr. Arnold is the Director of Youth Development, Research, and Practice for the National 4-H Council. I'm Brad Anderson, and I'm excited to be with you presenting today at MOSAC2. I have been a Missouri 4-H youth development professional for over 20 years and have gotten to see the rise of the Missouri After School Network under the leadership of its impressive team. It's been so cool to watch. The outcomes for this webinar, I hope, will be to introduce the science of positive youth development, also known as PYD, and the unique opportunities it could bring to your programming, to develop research-based understandings of positive youth development, to understand thriving as the social, emotional, cognitive, and behavioral aspects of PYD, to understand the components that make up a positive youth development program, and to apply key findings from the sciences of learning and development towards practice. So what is positive youth development? We've referred to this, we've used this term to describe a natural process of youth getting mature. We've used it to kind of describe our philosophical approach to youth programs. We've used it as a theory of youth growth and development and to design high quality programs for youth. We've used it to describe the intended outcomes of some youth programs. But whatever we've used it for, positive youth development is a strengths-based approach, and it's really about successful, productive futures. Let's switch gears to agronomy for a second, and let's just grow a plant that'll help youth thrive. We're going to start with our soil, and the soil is what we'll call our developmental context. There's some developmental nutrients that will go into this soil, just like other nutrients would go into other soil. It will be youth engagement. Another nutrient will be relationships. Belonging is another one, and youth sparks is another developmental nutrient. We will talk about what these things are as well. So when we talk about your program as a developmental context, if it were me, my first question would be, what's a context? When we say context, we're talking about the people, the places, the environment, and the circumstances surround an individual in their life. Think about the organizations you're a part of, or that you were a part of as a child. Maybe it's Scouts or 4-H or something else, band. We affect our context, context affect us. Examples of the things that may comprise a context. It may be a young person's family cultural values. That'll shape their world, right? Socioeconomic status. How much money do you have? How healthy are you? The politics of the house that you're being raised in. How supported they feel as an individual. Their circle of friends or classmates, the people they spend time with. Where they live. And there's so many more things that really can go to create your individual context. So we talked about this being a context of thriving youth. What is thriving? And I would say thriving is when a young person is gaining in positive ways in their life, and they're making the world around them better as well. They're being enriched by the environments, the people, the situations around them, also known as their context. And those contexts are really made better through that young person's involvement. The relationship goes both directions. Thriving orients youth towards success and bright futures. Now, don't freak out. We're going to do a little bit of research schematic here. 3 components of this topic. In the research that was done in creating the model, they studied developmental contexts, which we'll talk about in more depth, and which that's like your programming. And then they looked at the outcomes, those outcomes that we know that youth should be getting as a result of all the great things that we've done with them, right? And what they found is that the relationship wasn't as strong as they fully expected it to be. When they introduced this concept of thriving, it was like the missing link. They found that there was a really strong relationship between certain pieces of the developmental context of thriving, and then thriving youth had a much stronger relationship to developmental outcomes that we were expecting to see. This graphic shows some of the data analysis from the thriving model of positive youth We know that youth can have long-term benefits from youth development programs, but the research showed that just being in a program is really not very predictive of those great outcomes in life. Thriving was that missing link. And when youth are rich in developmental context and can get into a thriving orientation, that becomes a predictor of long-term success and other positive outcomes. So thriving is the process of positive youth development and youth programs. Thriving mediates the relationship, just like you turn on a garden hose and that knob helps you mediate how much water is flowing through. Thriving mediates the relationship between the developmental context and then the developmental outcomes. When we talk about your program as a developmental context, remember what contexts are. Developmental contexts are just those contexts that really further development in positive ways for that young person. And we talk about life skills, we talk about personal competencies and things like that. So the developmental context is extremely important because that's where we begin. The context that we create within our programs helps to orient youth towards thriving. The key ingredients in our developmental soil involve youth sparks, an environment of belonging, developmental relationships, and youth engagement. Now, we probably all know what relationships are and what belonging is, but what are sparks? Let's talk about each one of these things as they relate to your program. Sparks are something that an individual is passionate about. Maybe a spark, a person can have more than one spark. Sparks are self-discovered. They come from deep within. They bring joy, purpose, direction, energy. Think about something you love to do. Maybe it's fishing. Maybe it's basketball. Maybe it's knitting. There could be all sorts of things. And that is an example of a spark. Spark can be a skill or a talent, like music, art, sports. A spark can be a commitment, social justice, equality, environmental advocacy. A spark can be a quality, empathy, intelligence, and spirituality. Sparks provide an intrinsic fuel. They really drive a person. They power youth to learn and to grow as they seek knowledge and information in pursuit of that spark. Sparks give youth ways to contribute to the world. And a spark is almost always something that can be beneficial to the world. It creates positive things for the world around them. Sparks help youth build networks of other youth who have similar sparks or even the same spark as them. Sparks can be protective factors. Sometimes you don't want to get involved in things that are going to limit your ability to do those things that you truly love. So you're going to stay out of trouble. You're going to focus on the things that get you where you want to be. Sparks provide a sense of purpose, a sense of place in the world. And youth who found their sparks tend to experience greater optimism and higher self-esteem. Sparks move us towards a thriving orientation. Think back to when you were a young person, if you're not still, and don't you wish that this awareness was out there? It was just, instead of saying, oh yeah, they like to do that, realizing that those things that you're passionate about, that you love so much, are actually doing some great things for you as a developing person. So that's sparks. Another nutrient we've talked about is belonging. And everyone develops a sense of who they are in relationship to the world. Building an identity involves things like our different relationships, statuses, cultural values, spiritual connections, and much more. One of the most important pieces is the experience of belonging, being able to engage with others and shape what happens. It is an individual being able to influence their context, basically. Individual context relationship. Belonging is a person's connection to the world. Now, the importance of belonging is reflected throughout positive youth development literature, old and new. And the most current research identifies 8 indicators of program quality. One key indicator is the opportunity to belong. Does this look familiar in your programs? Developmental relationships is another nutrient that goes into our soil, which is our developmental context. And positive youth-adult relationships are really about mutual trust, warmth, and respect, if that relationship is to be a developmental relationship. When youth and adults work together and everyone grows from the experience, then it probably is a developmental relationship. Developmental relationships have some characteristics. They involve mutual warmth and respect and trust. They are bidirectional. It's not just a one-way relationship. Youth and adults engage together. It's not doing things at youth. It's not doing things for youth. It's doing things with youth. And both gain from the experience. These relationships grow over time as needs change. When people mature, they get more competent. They experience different things in life that create different needs. Developmental relationships express care. They provide support. They challenge growth. They share power as youth become more capable and older and mature, and they expand possibilities. So think about that in terms of your relationship with the youth who are in your program. Hopefully you see some qualities and characteristics there in you or your staff's interaction with the young people we serve. Another nutrient is youth engagement. It's the final nutrient in our developmental soil. Youth programs have their greatest impact on positive youth development when youth are fully engaged in the program, especially when they participate for multiple years, or at least extended periods of time. And youth should be encouraged to participate actively and regularly, because we know that just walking into the after-school program and walking out the door again is not going to really give them anything that helps them in their life other than a maybe 2-3 second memory. It really matters how they're involved. So when we think in terms of the research about youth engagement, we're talking about the duration of their experience with your program, how long they've been involved, how intensely they've been involved. Have they really just scratched the surface and moved on, or have they really gotten into these activities and opportunities that you're offering? And then the breadth of their experience. Do they just stay on the computer every time, or are they trying new things, new programs, new clubs and opportunities? Again, youth should be encouraged to participate actively and regularly, and belonging is a really critical part of that. Youth engagement moderates the relationship between that developmental context. Remember those 3 circles we saw? Here they are. Looking at the developmental context and youth thriving, youth engagement moderates that relationship. If they are really engaged in those ways we just discussed, then the opportunity to get into a thriving orientation and path in life is so much higher, so much faster. So we have our Thrive plant planted. We have our developmental context with all these rich nutrients in the soil. What's next? Next would be the indicators that what we're doing is producing fruit, it's growing. And these are called thriving indicators. Now these indicators are listed here: growth mindset, openness to challenge and discovery, hopeful purpose, pro-social orientation, transcendent awareness, positive emotions, goal setting and management. Now, many of these terms probably seem really familiar, and there's probably a few that seem like unfamiliar. And those things are always a little intimidating. So let's just go through each of these and make sure we're on the same page. Helping you thrive. Whether a young person holds a fixed mindset or a growth mindset significantly impacts their learning experience from elementary school to high school. So what is a growth mindset? Well, youth who have a growth mindset, or they have a growth mindset when they believe that they can get better at things by working hard, putting in effort. Kind of old school. Research shows that a growth mindset is a really important quality for thriving and future success. Youth who develop a growth mindset also develop something called grit, which is associated with perseverance and resilience. You just don't quit, you keep going, you dig deep. Youth who hold a fixed mindset rather than a growth mindset, They give up when they can't solve a problem. When things get tough, they just quit. This can be really detrimental to students' future efforts, and it leads to limited student growth. And we recognize that people all come from different places, and not everyone has had the same experiences and opportunities to develop this. But with the growth mindset, students continually work to improve their skills, leading to greater growth and ultimately success. Key to all of this is to get youth to tune into that growth mindset. Another thriving indicator is being open to challenge and discovery. And in this, we're talking about learning that they can learn, grow, and get better through effort. Encouraging youth to take positive risks, like speaking in front of others, supports the development of self-efficacy and mattering. Public speaking is a great example. I mean, we've heard the stats that more people would be afraid of dying or public speaking than death, right? They'd rather be in the casket than delivering the eulogy. Something's wrong with that. Encouraging youth to take these positive risks like public speaking really does support their development. And this term self-efficacy and mattering, what is self-efficacy? That's just believing in yourself. Self-efficacy is the belief we have in our own abilities, specifically our ability to meet the challenges ahead of us and complete the task successfully. Because thriving youth have the desire and the ability to explore and try new things and challenges. Now, generally, self-efficacy refers to our overall belief in our ability to succeed, but there are many specific versions of this, like our ability to succeed as an athlete or a friend or an academic. There's many pathways in life. Then there's self-esteem, and we know what self-esteem is. It refers to one's sense of worth. Looking at the two together, it's easier to believe in yourself if you value yourself. It's easier to value yourself when you believe in yourself. These two things are separate, but they're related constructs. High self-worth can definitely improve one's sense of self-efficacy, just as high self-efficacy can contribute to one's sense of overall value or worth. Now, it's important in helping youth to be open to challenge and discovery. And one thing that's really helpful with this is the practice of scaffolded learning. Scaffolding is a teaching strategy that just encourages young people collaboratively in tasks that they would not be able to complete on their own. The idea is that the instructor provides a lot of support for scaffolding and then gradually fades out that support as the young person and young people learn the content and the behavior and move forward. Another thriving indicator is having a hopeful purpose. Thriving youth have a sense of hope and purpose. They see themselves on the way to happy and successful futures. Purpose is the stable and generalized intention to accomplish something that's at the same time meaningful to itself and beneficial to the world around them. Interestingly enough, William Damon had an interesting comment that, especially in these days of intense focus on individual performance, status, there's a real risk in the development of today's young of self-absorption for the sake of everybody, their mental health, their character development, especially. All young people need to hear the message, he says, from time to time, it's not all about you. Finding a purpose that contributes to the world beyond the self is a premier way of really tuning into that message. Think about a 4 or 5-year-old who can be asked to help out in the home in ways like watering the plants or feeding the dog or cat. When children help out with tasks like this, they acquire a sense of service to their families. Eventually, the sense of service generalizes to other sectors of the world beyond themselves. Identity formation, which is one of the key parts of healthy adolescent development, having a sense of purpose, are connected. In fact, hope and purpose appear to come from one sense of identity. Thriving youth see helping others as personal responsibility, and that's what a pro-social orientation is all about. Pro-social youth care about others, and they take action that reflects this caring. Pro-social development happens through social learning, where youth observe and remember the behaviors that are rewarded and then begin to practice them. This helps young people internalize positive attitudes and actions until they become part of their core values. We think that the growth of prosocial behavior in children as they age is likely caused by a number of factors, including the ability to take on another person's perspective, have sympathy, empathy, and really internalize the other-oriented approach. Social learning theory says that we learn to be prosocial by interactions with others in environments that promote and model the behaviors that are desired. So as children grow up, prosocial development depends on their relationships with other people. For example, children whose parents express warmth and responsiveness to their needs, they're more likely to develop prosocial behaviors. As they become teenagers and increasingly dependent on what their peers think of them versus what their parents think, adolescents whose best friends display prosocial behaviors, well, they also tend to engage in these behaviors themselves. Prosocial development is facilitated when young people feel that they belong and matter to other people. Not belong to other people, they belong, and matter to other people. They learn prosocial values through interacting with others, ultimately becoming a young person who cares about others and gives back to his or her community. Thriving youth are aware of a reality bigger than themselves. And this is an interesting indicator called transcendent awareness. This transcendent awareness shapes everyday thoughts and actions. And it results from interactions with other people that support a deeper connection beyond the self, a connection with something bigger. Now, these interactions can help youth develop clarity and commitment to their values, their beliefs, their actions, and a way of living that also benefits other people. As youth develop transcendent awareness, they can become committed to personal beliefs, morals, and values that really guide their everyday thoughts and actions. These commitments provide the foundation for youth action towards a sense of morality and contribution to others. And it may be a religious beliefs, it may be spirituality, it may be something else entirely. Thriving youth have positive emotionality, which is an interesting way of saying it, but it's saying that they're positive and optimistic, and they're able to manage emotions in ways that lead to health and well-being. Goldman points out that the emotional brain responds to an event more quickly than the thinking brain. The higher cerebral, the prefrontal lobes of the cerebral cortex. If you're not able to manage your distressing emotions, and if you can't have empathy and effective relationships, then no matter how smart you are, you're never going to get very far. The legendary Mr. Rogers himself said, "All feelings are mentionable, therefore all feelings are manageable." This is especially important for teens. All youth need to learn positive ways to express their emotions rather than hiding their feelings or pushing them down or expressing them in negative ways. Research shows that helping youth develop reappraisal skills can really give them the tools they need to manage strong emotions effectively and explore their powerful emotions rather than suppress them. Negative emotions can even be redirected into positive emotional responses. Emotional management is really part of emotional intelligence, a key social skill that is needed throughout life. Finally, self-regulation and goal setting is an important indicator that youth may be on a thriving trajectory. Thriving youth set goals, they persevere in achieving those goals. They also make self-regulatory decisions that lead to better short-term and long-term success. Thriving youth have their eye on the future. They set goals to get them there. The ability to make choices with the goal in mind is a key skill for setting goals and thinking about your future. And thriving youth also persevere to reach their goals, even when the going gets tough. This perseverance is known as grit. Remember grit? And research shows that grit is even a bigger predictor of success than one's innate intelligence or natural abilities. Recognizing that life is a marathon and not a sprint. Grit is a positive, non-cognitive trait based on the perseverance of effort combined with passion for a particular long-term goal or end state in mind. So we are growing our thriving planet. We see indicators that thriving trajectory is being achieved, and we have seen these things through a growth mindset, openness to challenge and discovery, a hopeful purpose, pro-social orientation, transcendent awareness, self-regulation and goal setting, and positive emotionality. So now, what's next? Our plan is going to continue to grow with developmental outcomes. Finally, we are arriving. The developmental outcomes and the qualities we expect to see in young people who have been on a thriving trajectory are positive academic attitudes, social competence, personal standards, connections with others, personal responsibility, and contribution. Thriving youth grow in competence with their skills. They have high personal standards. They become more connected to their world, and they experience academic motivation and success. Maybe they're not a straight A student. That doesn't mean they stop trying. They engage in fewer risk behaviors. We talked about that as a protective factor in Sparks, and they make healthful choices. Thriving youth contribute more to their community, their country, and the world around them. So let's talk developmental outcomes. Once again, we're knocking it down to 6 categories: personal responsibility, connection with others, contribution to others, positive academic attitudes, social competence, and high personal standards. So we're blowing through the developmental outcomes, picking up speed, and now we get to the long-term outcomes. And that's where all this is going. Why do we have all these things? What is it going to benefit that young person who grows and matures and becomes an adult? And what the research suggests is it could translate into academic or vocational success, civic engagement, employability, economic stability, happiness, and well-being. So the model looks something like this. Thriving is the process. Thriving is the process of positive youth development. Our contribution begins in your after-school program as you provide youth a wide range of experiences to explore their sparks, experience belonging, and experience positive relationships with peers and adults. In our programs, we invite them to belong and encourage them to engage deeply in a wide range of experiences over time. I have been very honored to be part of this National 4-H Thriving Model Task Force. And what it's in the process of is replicating the research from the original study to see how that research applies across even wider ranges of youth in different contexts and situations. So I am working with many other people from many other universities on this project. And if you are interested, I really recommend just staying tuned because in the months ahead, there will be new products coming from the professional development team, modules, training materials. The research and evaluation will be underway, and you may be able to participate in that. And then we're looking at how to organize all of this among different parts of the 4-H organization and beyond. So this has been Helping You Thrive. I hope that you have found information useful to you. I hope that you have a new set of glasses to look through your experience with as you work with young people in the incredible ways that you do. And I hope that you are even more assured now that what you do matters so much and how we do it matters. We create these amazing developmental contexts, and the opportunities are almost endless for the positive outcomes that we hope for all these wonderful kids that come into our lives. If I can be of any service to you or support to you as you go through your career, please let me know. Reach out. I'm always glad to hear from you. Brad Anderson, andersonv@missouri.edu. Thank you for being with me and have a wonderful rest of your MOSAC2 conference. Take care.